Okay. So I tell the story all the time is that Colin Morikawa, who I've been his coach since he's 8 years old, never won an AJGA tournament. And many people are surprised by that. Yet if we were obsessed, why haven't you done that? I can't believe you've done that. We take away from the development of what he's learned along the way. And at 12 years old, our goal was never to win a tournament. It was maybe his own best. Maybe I improved by one shot, my own self, not by comparing myself to others as you go. So we can certainly use results as a goal mechanism, but really when we're talking about developing junior golfers, development happens not necessarily in a linear way.
Welcome to The Golf Parent. Imagine your child stepping up to the biggest moment of their golfing life, calm, focused, and confident. That's the mindset two-time major champion Colin Morikawa takes into every major championship. And today you're going to learn exactly how it's built. My guest is Dr. Rick Sessinghaus, Colin's lifelong mental coach and one of the top performance minds in golf. From managing tournament nerves to creating a pre-shot routine that locks in the confidence, Rick shares the exact strategies parents can use to give their kids the mental edge. If you've been looking for the blueprint to raising a resilient, confident golfer, this is it. But before we get into it, I want to thank our friends at Tour Striker, the most awarded training aids in golf and trusted by tour pros, coaches, and serious players around the world. Whether it's their best-selling smart ball for better connection or their lineup of tools to improve your swing mechanics, Tour Striker has everything that you need to level up your game. And because you're part of the Golf Parent community, you get 15% off anything at tourstriker.com with the code GOLFPARENT. All caps, one word. Go check them out and give your junior golfer the tools the pros trust. And now, let's get into the episode. Dr. Sessinghaus, thank you for joining us on the Golf Parent podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a very, very long time.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I always love sharing information to all those parents out there that should be listening a little bit more to what you've been doing.
Well, you know what? It's one step at a time, and oftentimes it's a case of really not realizing the best way to kind of be a good golf parent and to be present and intentional and not really understanding what's actually helping your kids progress throughout the junior golf ranks and their sporting career and what's actually holding them back. So why don't we start there? What, in your experience, does a good golf parent look like? What works and what definitely doesn't work?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, and there's many things that will probably go along with this conversation. But I think the first one is, as a parent, I have 3 children, so I am coming from a parent's perspective.
You're qualified, yeah.
Yeah, and now being a coach of so many people who have gone from 6-year-olds all the way to the tour life, so I've seen that journey also. And what I've noticed is that I think parents have at heart, they really want to help their kids. But my question is, what are you trying to help them do? And if it's just purely outcome, then we've got a problem. If it's to nourish a passion and a love for a game and to help them, with the journey of that would be different, right? We would want our children to find something they're passionate about, that they are passionate about, not the parent. And that you see that with these kids that just want to be at the golf course all day. But what I have found is some of those parents have now extinguished that passion and that love, because now it does flip to outcome pretty early. I understand when you're getting into college and all that stuff, but I'm talking 11, 12-year-olds that it's been extinguished because they care more about the rankings of a U.S. kids tournament, or why haven't you shot par yet, and all this expectation, and it really takes the joy out of it. So overarching is, as parents, what are you there to do? You support the love of something. And then where it goes from there, we can certainly talk as they get older what a parent would do. But I think sometimes their own goals of living vicariously through the junior golfer gets in the way.
So is it a matter of, you've mentioned focusing on outcome a few times. And so maybe let's define it. Like, what is focusing on outcome, and what would be an alternative focus for both the player and the parent to have?
Sure. And I think what we're seeing is that rankings are happening earlier and earlier, right? It used to be maybe at 15, 16, you'd have a rankings and you kind of know where you stood nationally if you were going to get a college scholarship. We're starting seeing rankings at 8-year-old, 9-year-old in, let's say, I'm in Los Angeles area. In our Southern California PGA, you have rankings within each division. So now these juniors are thinking they're always having to prove themselves over and over again. And I think you lose sight of development of a golfer. Okay. So I tell the story all the time is that Colin Morikawa, who I've been his coach since he's 8 years old, never won an AJGA tournament. And many people are surprised by that. Yet, if we were obsessed, why haven't you done that? I can't believe you've done that. We take away from the development of what he's learned along the way. And at 12 years old, our goal was never to win a tournament. It was maybe his own best. Maybe I improved by one shot, my own self, not by comparing myself to others as you go. So we can certainly use results as a goal mechanism, but really when we're talking about developing junior golfers, development happens not necessarily in a linear way. And can we look at other aspects of improving parts of the game as they get older and stuff like that? So I think it's the outcome of rankings and I have to do this and I got to qualify for this. I think it's lost into, are you actually becoming a better player? Because most junior golfers right now don't have a development plan. It's always, I need to get ready for the next tournament. It's like, well, wait a second. How about you take 2 months off and actually practice and actually do those things? So some of that has been fed by the outside about rankings. And then parents who don't know any better think, well, that seems like the easiest metric. Why don't I just compare my junior with everybody else? And if they're not there, I got to push them harder. And I think that's a big disconnect.
In Colin's case, was it a case that he was undersized, he just didn't have the skill sets to compete? Like, why didn't he win any tournaments? And how did he not, with conjunction with you and his parents, not let that deter his dream of actually playing professional golf?
Well, okay, so let me backtrack. He never won an AJGA event, which is a national event that everybody has. Did he win events? Of course he did. Okay. He won his biggest one when he was 16 years old, the Junior Western, which is a very large national event. Up to that point, if you were here in Southern California, you may know his name and go, oh, he's a good player. But nobody was going to think he's the next Tiger Woods, some maybe because of his size. But when you see his linear progression, he actually got better every single year. And when college coaches were recruiting him, they saw the metric just kept going like this. Now, he didn't spike like some 15-year-olds who are already 6 foot tall, and then they mature early, and then they come down. He was always getting better as a golfer. Okay, didn't mean he hit the ball the furthest or anything like that. But that's all we were measuring is, are you better today than you were 6 months ago? And then what can we look ahead? We always had a plan for 2 or 3 years ahead. He wanted to play college golf, so we needed to have him learn how to hit punch shots. We needed him to learn how to flop shot. We needed to have more tools in his toolbox that may not show up good immediately, but needed to be to start to develop now. A lot of parents are just help my kid win this tournament and put a Band-Aid on something so they perform better in one, but they never develop the skills of learning how to play golf at the highest level.
That certainly seems to be a trend that I'm hearing in these conversations that I'm having with experts like yourself is that the focus doesn't need to be to have the best 7-year-old in the country or the best 15-year-old. It really needs to be to have the best 25-year-old in the country. And that kind of long-term vision and that plan, as you keep alluding to, is imperative to actually map out what it actually takes. Now, a big component of that is working with a mental coach. And at 8 years old, Colin was working with you. Is that early? Is that too late? Like, what's the optimum time to be actually working with a mental coach?
And again, let's give some context here. I've been coaching the golf swing for 30 years. I'm a member of the PGA. I'm a very, very good swing instructor. So at that time, I meet an 8-year-old. I'm his swing instructor first, and then yes, I'm putting in mental game tidbits of routines and course management and strategy in that. And as you get older, you add a little bit more about how to deal with nervousness and how to focus and how to be more confident. So I have a unique background is that I'm a high level swing mechanical coach too, who has a doctorate in applied sports psychology, who wanted to bring the best of both worlds. Now, if those parents out there that say, hey, I want to hire Rick and I have an 8-year-old, I will be referring you to somebody else. Okay. That is not right now where my wheelhouse is. But there is always things we can learn at every single age. I have he's a dear friend of mine and one of my colleagues at my company, Flow Code. And we talk about mental game processes for very young students. One we call the mental mantras. One is breath equals calm. Teaching an 8-year-old to take a smooth, rhythmic breath could help them minimize that anxiety, could help them focus. So it's where somebody's at, age wise, maturity wise. But I find that what's happening is I used to get a lot of 16-year-olds coming to me because of the pressure of college recruiting. Now I'm starting to see more people who are 12 years old, 13 years old, who are having performance anxiety because the amount of, let's say, pressure that's being put on them of not performing. So now everything must be important. So unfortunately, it's trickling down at younger and younger ages. And there are some coaches that are more qualified to work in those areas than others.
How do we define performance anxiety? Is it simply just projecting into a future outcome that hasn't happened yet? Like, is it that simple, or how would you define it?
Yeah, I love that. In my company, we call it fear state versus flow state. And fear
Mm.
state starts with anxiety of projecting into the future of what is a threat. This is something that's a threat. My body goes into a stress response or fight or flight, which now can change grip pressure, can change timing, can change feel, can also change decision making, by the way. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. Anxiety is projecting in the future, looking at something as a threat, even though it hasn't happened yet. My body gets ready for that. Now, a flow state is being completely immersed in the present moment, believing you have the skills to match the challenge in front of you, looking forward to the challenge instead of this threat. And you're now focused, you're confident, you're calm to tap into those physical skills that you already have.
So in this day and age, there seems to be this almost this cuddle culture, or this helicopter parent that's trying to protect, and rightly so, our kids from any sort of threats out there, imaginary or real. And in doing that, we seem to almost be depriving them of the grit and the perseverance and that kind of that dog mentality that they need to be successful. How do we manage that? How do we manage not putting them into these performance anxiety pressure situations while also putting them in those situations so that they can get exposure therapy, for lack of a better term, or some sort of way to be used to it?
That's a great thing to say, is exposure therapy should happen in training anyways. But
Mm.
a lot of golfers who have fixed mindsets, and a lot of junior golfers have fixed mindsets now because they're only wrapped into outcome, is they'll make excuses. They're not going to take personal responsibility. Or they have this idea, well, in the tournament, yeah, that's when I'll focus. And it's like, that's not going to happen, because when they're stressed, you're going to now go back and revert back to your old training. So along those lines we always say in growth mindset, failure becomes a great learning opportunity. What can I learn from that? So I talk a lot about immediate feedback from all my players. What did that shot do? What did I learn from it? How could I do differently next time? Hey, I just played in a round of golf in a tournament. What did I do well? How was my core strategy? What could I adjust next? Instead of saying that's a failure and that's bad, it's like, maybe you didn't get the results you wanted, but if you don't ask follow-up questions of feedback, you just link it as a failure. What I want people to say, I want to get pushed, I want to fall down, but I better learn from that. So yes, we're protecting not only golfers, but we're protecting this younger generation way too much. So when they do fail, they have zero tools to bounce back with. And we want people to understand is that the growth is going to come from breaking something down. Just like you work out, in order to get stronger, you're going to get sore, right? You have to break down a muscle. We're trying to break down some stuff, but you have to have some resilience, comes from different tools of how do you learn from the feedback. I do a lot of post-shot routine of learn, 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 learn. Doesn't mean you're happy, okay? But it's a matter of, I have some level of control. I could do something differently next time. That's the growth that would occur.
What's an example of a post-shot routine, and does that almost run counter to being in what would be described as a flow state? If we're activating our logical part of our mind and we're judging that shot and what's happening, does that take us out of the moment?
There's a clear definition different, is that if I'm critical, if I'm judgmental, you're right, it pulls us out of flow. But if I'm
Mm.
curious and I want to learn, that curiosity is a much different state that I'm going to be in. So somebody could be in a flow state, hit a poor golf shot, and learn from it in a very detached way and go, that was interesting. That went to the left. Wasn't my intention. What did I learn from it? Instead of, that ball went left. You suck. That's the worst shot you've ever hit. Rick, I can't believe how bad you are. Oh my God, you should give up golf.
Have you been golfing with some of my golf partners? Because that's their external dialogue that I'm
Hey,
hearing on the course.
I played college golf, and my friends called me the Hulk back in the day because you would see me turn green and slam clubs and smash, right? So
Yeah.
I get it, but you bring up a good point is that flow actually, one of the precursors is immediate feedback. We're always learning, but if you're open to learning, it's not critical, it's not judgmental. It's like, man, that's cool. I get to learn from that, huh? I wonder why that ball went left. Was that a mental error? Was that a physical error? Huh? Was I in between shots and never committed to it? Huh, that's interesting. But once it's critical, that's bad shot. I'm a bad player. I can't believe how horrible this day is going. Certainly, you're going to be pulled right out of flow because you're not in the present moment and you're not, embracing the challenge that's in front of us.
What are some tools that you've found effective to keep us grounded in the present moment, especially when there's a lot of external things that are pulling us out of the present?
Yeah. So when we look at flow follows focus, the only way to get in a flow state is to be in the present moment. So golf is a slow moving sport. You would think that that would make it easier. Not
Mm.
necessarily. Sometimes the mind wanders, it's jumping around a lot. And so when I work with clients, it's, where did those distractions come from? Are they coming from external noises, playing partners, parents that they can see? Or is it internal, swing thoughts, anxiety about the future, what could go wrong? There's multiple things that could pull us out of the present moment. So now back to your question is what could put me in a present moment? I tend to start with present-based questions. Is like pretending, hey, you got Coach Rick on your shoulder, and Coach is asking you, how is this lie going to affect the ball flight? What's the measurement to the front edge of this green? How firm are these greens right now? Where's the wind coming from? And these would be questions that would be problem solving for the task at hand. Now you can take it a step further, and we can use breath work as a way to inhale through the nose, hold maybe for 3 count, exhale through the mouth through 5. That 8 seconds becomes an 8-second timeout, and I'm focusing on breath. Then there's mindfulness. I can feel my feet into the ground. I can feel grounding. So we can utilize different sensory to get into the present moment also. So it's looking, certainly we can do these tools of breath work, and then we can use visualization to be present of what I want. But people still have to be very aware of where their distractions are coming from, what's in their control, what's out of their control, and do they have strategies to deal with that? And back to the parents, right? A major, major distraction for junior golfers is seeing their parent and how they may or may not react to the shot. They're already in the future like, I better hit this good, or my dad's going to have a fit. You haven't even hit the shot yet. But now that's become a distraction. It's become an emotional attachment now. We got trouble. So now we have strategies. So sometimes I say, hey, Dad, instead of being right near them, you're going to be near the green. So little Johnny can't see you anymore. So you're still going to get to see your kid, but they're not going to be able to see you. Okay. So we can do those things. And of course, I have to talk to the parent too. You're not reacting to every single shot that they hit emotionally, because then that kid now
Feeds back into the loop of.
Totally. Yeah.
So speaking of things that you can control, I'm assuming you're big on the pre-shot routine. In fact, I know you are. What would you, one, what's a good pre-shot routine look like? And two, are you a fan of having one or two thoughts right as you're about to swing? Are you looking to completely be zen and have zero thoughts, or is it individual?
Very individual. So my company, Flow Code, we're looking at what are those tools and strategies and frameworks to get you into that flow state. And what we have found is that everybody's different. And so let's think about what is a pre-shot routine. Why do we do? I work with players all the time. I say, do you have a pre-shot routine? Oh, yeah, coach. And I look at it and it's just awful, right? Why? Because they were told, oh, a pre-shot routine is take one breath, walk in, and hit it. And I go, okay, but how did you determine what club to use? And they're like, oh, that's part of the pre-shot routine? Yeah, you got to make a decision. You got to focus on what's relevant. You got to filter that information in based on your strengths and your weaknesses, understand your dispersion rates, understand how you're making good decisions. Oh, you mean I have to think about the lie and I have to think about yeah. Now, sometimes they do it subconsciously. I get it, but they're skipping so many steps. So there's certainly is we are trying to prepare myself mentally, emotionally, and physically to execute a golf shot to my best ability. That's what a routine is, right? But most people either skip the cognitive side. It's like, yeah, I shot the number, Rick. It's 152. I go, okay, it's uphill at least 6, and it's into the wind, which you now missed, and that is a fly or lie. You don't have even close to the amount of information you're going to need. And they're like, oh, Okay. So then it's about how do you make decisions. Then we got confidence. Do you actually believe you actually can execute the shot that you decided on? Then physically, am I in a state to hit a shot, or am I tight? There's a lot of layers to this. And then some people are more visual. Some people love to see the shot. Some people want to feel the shot. The list goes on and on of the different layers. But if we want to, be aware of our environment, filter that information in, make good decisions, be confident I'm confident with my decision and I can execute it, and my body's in a state that I can perform, I think that's a pretty good pre-shot routine. But most people don't think about it that way. They just shoot the number, grab a club, hit, even though they didn't take all the information in. Even though in the back of their head they go, I don't like this club. I should go back to my other club at my bag, but I don't want to waste time. And they just hit it anyways. Does a routine look like a routine? Yeah, it does, but it's absolutely useless.
You talked about confidence, and I believe one of the jobs of a parent is to help instill confidence in our kids. How do we do that? Especially when there's evidence to the contrary right in their face. Hey, if you're enjoying The Golf Parent, if these conversations have inspired you or helped you become a better parent to your junior golfer, please hit subscribe. It truly means the world to us and sends a powerful signal that what we're doing matters. And if you're feeling extra generous, leave us a review or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Your support helps us grow and continue bringing you incredible guests each week. Thank you. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, I think the question then becomes is what leads to confidence, and the obvious, which unfortunately is too much, is a good result. So a parent just sees a good result as, well, that should give them confidence. But if there's no good result, how do I build into that? And the player relies too much on the instant result that just happened. Okay. I know that confidence comes from a lot of preparation. It comes from self-talk. It comes from visualization, how I carry myself, past results. And if I can utilize that, that can help. For parents, I would highly recommend that after a round of golf, the first question, well, there's two questions. First question is, little Johnny, did you have fun today? I know that's a novel idea. Did you actually enjoy it? And then number two, tell me what your best shot was today. And you pose it that way. Now the junior golfer is filtering the whole day based on what they did well, is opposite of what most people do, which is how did you play today and how could you three putt on number 17? And they're already now in a threat going, oh, that's what you paid attention to today? Oh boy, well, now I got to go. And my drive home with my dad is now telling him about the three putts I had and the one penalty shot I had and the missed chip. Instead of celebrating, I made 2 birdies today. And Dad, I was so proud that I finally got over the big lake on that par 3. And man, I had so much fun. And it's like, we've lost how to evaluate. And so parents need to ask better questions at the end of a round and emphasize certainly what they did well. And then on the poor golf shots or the results, is what did you learn from them? Not how could you do that in 3 putt? It's like, oh, I noticed that one putt on 17, you left it a little short. What do you think you could have done better? Well, Dad, I misread it a little bit. It was more uphill than I thought. That's a good learning instead of, I can't believe how bad your putting was. Okay. So how we frame those questions is going to be very important. And those parents need to understand that their junior golfer is already on edge. They already know what they did well and what they didn't. And you got to be careful on what you emphasize. Now, I want to make it clear. I'm not just saying you talk about the positive stuff, because then the junior gets delusional that they think they're better than they are. It's like, what did you learn today? Oh, I learned I got to still work on my hybrids because you know what? Sometimes okay, we'll talk to coach next time about that. Give the junior golfer more of a runway to talk about their round instead of just drilling into what you did wrong. You'll have some interesting conversations with them in a very positive way.
You've talked about identity a little bit here, and obviously confidence feeds into that. And I'm fascinated with the concept of like the best athletes in the world seem to be taking on almost either intentionally or unintentionally an alter ego, where they step onto the court or step onto the course and they embody something else. What's your experience with that? What's your take on that? And yeah, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so I've studied a lot of personality profiles, and so let me frame it here first. There are there's not one personality that is always going to be successful in anything. Okay. So when Tiger Woods was winning all the time, I would have parents come to me and says, I want my kid more like Tiger Woods. And I said, really? Okay. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, is that I don't believe Tiger Woods' method would work best for everyone. Okay. Does his focus, his unbelievable focus, and awesome, right? But does that really, but then there's been, and I'm dating myself here, but the Lee Trevinos of the world and the Chichi Rodriguez of the world who are talkative and having fun. And Lee Trevino won several major championships. Okay. We still need to be who we are. Okay. But I do ask all my players when they're going to be in a competitive environment, what's the best version of yourself that needs to show up for this? And we may get some traits like, Rick, I really need to be composed out there today. And I may ask him, is there somebody on the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour that you look up to that's composed? And they may say, yeah, I really like how Scotty Scheffler just carries himself. I go, great. We can be more like Scotty, but I still want you to be you. Okay. Yes, the alter ego effect can help people. I call it modeling. But I don't want somebody to be completely different than who they are, because there'll be some stress in that. Like I thought I had to be super serious. I came from a football family. Oh, you got to be serious. And that did not work for golf. I'm actually like to be more talkative, and I like to be, out more extrovert. And that actually helps my golf. Okay. So we have to be careful of trying to be somebody that we're not. But I think there's traits that we can take on that would help us, like being able to be focused and composed. And I'm going to be somebody who can bounce back, and I'm going to be positive, have positive self-talk. And that to me is more, I think, what we're looking for.
So you mentioned that you identified a few of these traits. If you were to, are you a fan of mantras? Are you a fan of some sort of like almost self-talk, or I know we've mentioned it, but like programming in an intentional way to help kind of steer that personality growth within the child?
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to get into like subconscious stuff, certainly affirmations can work to a point. You have to be careful of, like, if I said, I'm the greatest putter of all time, my brain will go, are you kidding me, Rick? But if I said, I have made thousands of putts like this before, the brain goes, oh yeah, that's true. Will that help me on the 6-footer? Yeah, I think so. I've made thousands of putts like this before. That's a true statement. Good. There's congruency. No problem. Sometimes with mantras and stuff, if there's incongruency there, there's a disconnect and friction anyways. But believing like, hey, I'm going to show up poised. Have I done that before? Yes. When did that happen? I remember doing that. I like using we call it anchoring, past memories for the present. It's like, I've done that before. Let's connect with that again. Okay. We can now project and say, I want to keep working on being more focused on the golf course. I want to be more confident on the golf course and put that out there. I totally agree with. But I've had some people go down the route that's a little bit too much trying to lie to yourself. And I think that can actually be detrimental.
I want to explore the concept of anchoring because I find that fascinating. Would you, every time you grab a club, would you be thinking about the best 7-iron you've ever hit before as you grab that club? Like, is that something that would be part of the toolbox, and then you're intentionally creating that in your child to make sure that they have that memory right at the forefront of for every club that they're about to hit?
100%. And I'll go a step further here in a moment, but I've had plenty of my clients who in their yardage book have already typed out or written out the best shot they've hit with every single club in their bag. So it's
Nice.
not that they have to now recall it. It's already there. My best 5-iron, my best 8-iron. When did it happen? Oh yeah, it happened 2 months ago at XYZ Country Club, 16th hole. And now I'm back into that memory. That's now changed your emotional state, by the way. Your focus and your attention is now shifted like, that's right, I can do this. So that's one way. Take it a step further is when you did that, how did that feel? Right? So I talk about anchoring where this is when I was a competitive golfer. I replayed one of the best shots I've ever hit in my life over and over and over and over and over again. So yes, I'm recalling it visually, but I could tell you, and this happened back in 1994, so I'm dating myself, but a driver that I hit so well, so flush. So I can remember the Max Fly Bellata golf ball I was using, the TaylorMade 7-degree Tour Preferred head I had on. I was wearing shorts that day. It was 95 degrees in Los Angeles. I can tell you that. It happened a long time ago, everybody. but I could step right into that right now because I've played that over and over and so much in different senses and stuff like that. It's anchored in within me. And when I was doing it, I was pressing my thumb and forefinger together as a neurological kind of anchor, physical anchor. So now in my pre-shot routine, I'm pressing my fingers together, which now triggers the memory, which now triggers the feeling. And then, yes, I'm in a different state when I was going to hit that shot.
That's fascinating. I remember going to I think it was a Tony Robbins conference where they
Yes.
were talking about that as well. I don't know if that's NLP or something, but
Oh.
so would we teach that to our kids? So as soon as they hit like a perfect shot, is to like ingrain it somehow?
Yes, we do it with fist pumps, right? Tiger Woods fist pump every single time. He's anchoring like, man, I'm the man who makes these flipping putts all the time.
But don't you have to then do the fist pump before you putt, which might be a little awkward?
What we're doing is he's anchoring it. Okay. So next time he has that 12 footer to win a tournament, it's already been so ingrained with emotion that, yeah, but yes, could you now use something in the future? Of course. It happens all the time subconsciously the opposite. I did this with putting. I could hit the great drive, I could hit the great approach shot, and now I have that downhill left to right 12 footer, which my mind goes, I don't like left to right downhill. And I'm not a very good. And so once I grab the putter, I'm already changed my state. Like, whatever. Good luck here, Rick. Every time the putter came out, I've already linked it to something I don't want or I don't like.
Throw out that putter.
Well, that's why I have a whole garage full of putters.
Yeah.
And yet we have the subconscious, like we get up to a hole, we go, oh, I don't like this hole because we have a past memory of it. But if I said, does this hole remind you of anything else you've done well at? You go, well, of course, it's just a driver and a 8-iron. It's like, let's shift what it means to us, the association of it. Yet we have needed to have already highlighted that success in the past, if that makes sense. So our memory is built on emotion. So a lot of people, and the better the player I work with, unfortunately, the less they celebrate great shots because they expect it. I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to. It's like, give yourself some credit for hitting that 5-iron from 220 to 3 feet, for crying out loud. And I think as junior golfers, parents, please celebrate these great shots. And here's a key thing, celebrate behaviors that were linked to it. Man, I am so proud how you bounced back after that double bogey and you look so poised on that next tee shot. And then the junior's like, oh, wow, he wasn't paying attention to me even though I didn't play well. Oh, my gosh, okay. Now my dad is watching me behave better. Oh, maybe that's I'm going to get some attention now for instead of the double bogey. So it's very important we anchor behaviors also as, yes, outcomes are important for our confidence.
I'm curious your take on visualization. The best players in the world at the elite levels, I'm curious what you know about visualizations the night before the round, like playing out the holes, visualizations before you take the shot. Like, how does that play into the what separates the elite from the rest?
Sure, and I'm going to use maybe a slightly different term with the mental game as imagery, right? So visualization would be the sense of me just seeing something, which is awesome. Imagery is going to be, how does it feel? What are you smelling? What are you hearing, right? How real can we make it? So the night before, I'm very much big into players visualizing the round of golf they want to have for the next day. Now, most people say, what, visualize 18 birdies? I said, no, not necessarily, but visualize good shots. But then I ask them, visualize how they want to show up. See yourself on the first tee composed. Yes, you're nervous and your heart's pounding, but guess what? You've done that breath work and you can now see yourself calm it down and you see yourself make that birdie. And then I do some if-then visualizations. If something goes wrong, then I do blank. Maybe you do miss a short putt. How do you want to visualize yourself or imagine yourself dealing with that? So I will play out scenarios that they can see in advance, which then gives them more likelihood that they can do it in real time. Okay. Then there's different types of visualizations. The most we say is the associated, which I'm seeing it through my own eyes, which is great. Those that have fear, we try to do disassociated. See yourself on a movie screen, which gets them a little more disassociated. One thing I used to do, and I do this with juniors all the time because they have fun with it, is imagine somebody else is hitting the shot for you. Okay. So back in the day, I was a big Nick Faldo and Fred Couples fan. And if I wanted to hit a cut, I say, hey, Freddie, you just go hit the cut for me. And I just pretend I was Freddie and hitting this little high cut. And I think in this day and age, whether it's, you have got Rory McIlroy's kind of bouncing along the fairway and how he walks, or maybe a Colin Morikawa, which is calmness, and somebody is attracted to that. We can now project somebody else to, hey, you just go do it for me. It's fun when these kids are trying to be somebody else, and it's back to kind of what you talked about, alter ego in a way. We learn through imitation. So I may have somebody, hey, what would Rory be doing here? And they're now outside of them doing it. It's a fun way to do it. So we can project that through visualizations also, but I would want to add as many sensory things to it to make it as real as possible, because all the research, we do know the importance of visualization, because when it's really rich with senses, our body doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So we might as well start to use these as training reps. If you're trying new things, or maybe you're changing your swing and you want to see your swing in a certain position, see what you want over and over again. Many, many, many powerful ways to use a visualization.
Is there science or is there evidence to show that, for example, Freddie Couples hitting that high cut, if you watched in the technology that we have right now, if you watch that shot over and over and over again, and you ingrain it into your mind and then visualize yourself hitting it as well, is there a way to use technology as well to almost enhance that process of imagery or visualization?
100%. And it happened back in the day. I think this is early 80s, a company called Cybervision. And
Hmm.
it was watching Al Geiberger swing over and over and over and over and again. Now, at that time, he mechanically had a very sound swing. His tempo was just fantastic. So now we're just seeing this image of what we want. Now you fast forward and we have Instagram, we have all of this images that are coming to us, right? Um, and what back to the visualization, it's actually easier for me to get people to visualize shots now because of shot tracers that are
Right.
on TV and in simulators. Now they can imagine. Now I ask them to change colors and have them become creative within the shot tracer. But yeah, I think technology for the most parts can be very beneficial. I don't want to get maybe too much down another rabbit hole, which I think with technology, with force plates and 3D and this and that, could we be overcoaching at younger ages? Probably the answer is yes on that. But for what we're talking about, I think mental game has actually become a little easier to coach because of shot tracers, and because a lot of these players are more open about the mental game, and about what they're working on with their mental game coach, and about, so it makes it more like viable, like, hey, maybe I should be doing that too.
When you were playing, what do you wish that you knew then that you now know when it comes to the mental side of the game?
I wish I was more, this will sound deep, but to forgive myself for mistakes.
Hmm.
I was so hard on myself of making mistakes that it took the joy out of the game, and it stunted my development. Now that I've been around the best players in the world and see constantly that they make mistakes, and I'm not saying they're always happy. That's not the point. The point is that they accept them and move on. I just couldn't accept it. I was so attached to the result, and I was just, so I never learned as much from those results, and it took out the joy of the game for me. And so going back in time, yes, I wish I had some mental game coaches to help me with post shot routines, help me. You want to have high standards, but you don't want to have unrealistic expectations, because I think that really gets in the way of development. So that's what I, would have learned, I think, back in the day.
I love that. You've mentioned a post-shot routine a few times here. What's a few examples of the questions without judgment that you would ask yourself, or what is a post-shot routine? We hear about pre-shot all the time, but what's a post-shot?
Sure. So post shot routine to me is not used every single shot, and I'll explain why in a moment. We all have post shot routines, whether you know it or not. You are reacting to a result.
That's fair.
You're
Yeah.
reacting. Okay. I'm just trying to put more intentionality behind the reaction. Okay. So an example would be, I'm hitting a driver. I hit the ball goes into the trees, hooks it. Old Rick, back in college, before that ball has even hit the trees, has already turned around, slammed his club, say, "You suck, Rick, you're horrible," put the club in the bag and stream down the thing. Now, why that was a routine is because I did it every single time after a bad shot. So guess what? It was repeatable. It was a routine. So now Rick hits the shot, Ball's hooking into the tree. He observes it. I observe it. I observe it. Take a breath. I go, that ball went 60 yards left of my intended line. That's a fact, by the way. I wonder why it went there. Was that a mental error or physical error? Now, a mental error might have been there was water on the right that I went into yesterday, and my last thought was don't go right, and I snapped it left. And other times, like, no, man, I had a good routine. I had a clear picture. I saw the shot in a red shot tracer. I was ready to go, and ball went 60 yards left anyways. Mental was fine. Physical. Do you know your physical cause and effects? For me, I tilt back, I get under plane, I flip it, even on the range. It's like, Rick, come on, you got to work on that. That's fine. But I've processed it in a way where I've tried to take some emotion out and reaction. I've turned it into curiosity and learning. And it could be with a putt. I miss a putt. Okay. Was it on my intended line? Was it the correct speed? Did I read it correctly? Was I committed to it? Sometimes you do all of those and you still miss it. I mean, there's stuff that's out of our control. But we see miss as bad, and we see, I can't believe it did it. And Rick, you're horrible. And then we get these judgments and labels on ourselves that there's zero learning at it. So I'm trying to diffuse emotion, how intense it gets, but how long does that emotion stay with you? Now, if I just hit a shot into the first cut of rough, I'm probably not gonna get that mad. I don't have to do a post-shot routine, everybody. It's when you notice your emotions are changing, okay? Now back to the positive. I hit this great 5-iron to 2 feet. I better have some self-talk to go, man, that's way to go, Rick. And I have a little strut to it. Maybe I do a little fist pump. Maybe we need to anchor those shots to in a post-shot routine. So a lot of people say it's just about negative or bad shots. No. It's, we need to anchor the good ones. Yes, we're trying to minimize, again, how long does those negative emotions stay with you, because they will affect your next shot.
Yeah, they definitely will. I'm a weekend warrior, kind of a hacker. And I find myself that as I get up there, I have more muscle memory of the bad shots than the good shots. And that's why I'm fascinated with your anchoring philosophy and understanding how to properly do that. Because when you're learning, which obviously our kids are doing and most of us are doing as well, you've ingrained so much of what not to do, and sometimes you're struggling to find what to do. But this is what keeps us coming back to the game. We've all found that one. We've all hit that perfect shot with every club. Yes. And it's just putting ourselves right back there and doing that in a very Zen way, if you will, without the judgment.
Yeah, and I think back to the positive stuff is like when I only have a handful of swing students now. But when they hit a good shot, I don't let them hit another ball until I ask them, how did that feel? I want the immediate feedback. And they go, well, it felt smooth. I said, what were you thinking on that one? I'm just thinking about that smooth finish. I was thinking about that nice patient takeaway. Or I want to know what they were experiencing that may have led to the positive result. And if we see it enough times, we now have pattern. And pattern recognition is, that's interesting. When I swing at 80%, I hit a lot of good shots. Note to self, maybe I should be thinking about that more often. But I think
note to ego.
Yeah. But I think people, they want to just beat balls and to get to positions of a swing and all this kind of stuff. Yes, you can use video. You can use that as a feedback tool. But ultimately, that feel is coming through the club. It's coming through your body. You need to own how that happened. And I think people gloss over the good stuff. They want to dissect the bad stuff. Oh, that's horrible. What did I do wrong? It's like, can you ask yourself what you did right on the good ones? I think is a good way to frame the feedback.
This is definitely a podcast I'm going to be listening to more than once, because there's so much good stuff that you've shared here. Doctor, for those that want to get into your ecosystem, you've got Flow Code, you've got your business, you've got your Instagram. What's the best way for people to get into your world, to potentially work with you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, we're very at our company. We have over 180 certified coaches in Flow Code. So whether it's with
Fantastic.
me or we have so many other coaches that would be willing to help. We have our junior director, Josh Alpert, who's out here in Los Angeles. He's one of the best junior coaches I've ever been around. And so we do have that ecosystem to help junior golfers. Flowcode.golf. Flowcode.golf is the easiest website to get. There's some seminars that I've given about developing Colin Morikawa. There's other things I've talked about, the mental side, all free resources on that. And there's certainly ways that we can help. Instagram is my full name, Rick Sessinghaus. We usually have tips almost daily on that. We do a lot of video stuff like that. So we're just here to help everybody out.
Okay, Dr. Sessinghaus, you've got the ears and the eyeballs of the golf parents throughout the nation and the world. What would you like them to know? What advice would you give them?
It's a very long journey. There are many, many bumps in the roads for sure. No matter how good you are or your player or your junior is, there are so many ups and downs. What I love about golf, even more so than other team sports, is you can play with your kid too. You can go play golf with your kid. How awesome is that to spend time? So let's not lose sight that this game provides so many wonderful things outside of competition. And golf provides this way of teaching us about life and what's unfair. And we got rules, we got all this stuff. And I think that's what we've lost sight a little bit too, is what golf can provide. Because obviously not everybody gets to turn pro. But I have had clients now, because I've been coaching for 30 years, who are now adults with kids, and they go, man, I still remember those lessons, Rick, and that's helped me to this day because it helps me in business and stuff like that. So we have a great game that we can learn so much for. So parents out there, let's use it in a way is to play golf, right? It's not working at it, it's playing golf. Yes, aspiring for goals and stuff is a great part of life. Just be fair to your child in this. They're going through a lot. And they're getting compared on Instagram. Their nowadays generation is going through it harder than ever before. So let's cut them a little bit of slack. My last thing would be parents. You have every right as a parent to assess their behaviors. If your son or daughter is slamming clubs and disrespecting things, you have every right to jump in on that. Just please be careful how much you jump in on just outcome-based performance, because that junior golfer takes that in wholeheartedly, and it stays with them for a long time.
Very well said. I'm just going to add to that let's also not forget, we talked about modeling earlier, and little Sally or little Jimmy look at ourselves as well, because maybe they picked up that behavior on all those rounds of golf that they're playing with mommy or daddy. How are we on the golf course, and are they modeling our behavior?
100%. That's great.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time. This was absolutely wonderful.
My pleasure, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. As a fellow golf parent, I know how much this journey matters. If this podcast helped you even 1%, please consider following and reviewing it. It's the #1 way to grow the community and keep bringing you elite insights week after week. And while you're here, check out the show description for exclusive discounts from our sponsors, handpicked to help your junior golfer train smarter and play better.